All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Camp Content. I'm excited for this week's guest, Liz Lathan. I have recently connected with her on LinkedIn, and I am so glad that I did because her content is super awesome, really fresh, really insightful, and really gets you thinking about stuff in a good way. And so I'm excited for her to be on the show today. And so let me introduce her a little bit more. Liz is the mastermind creative behind the Community Factory, which is revolutionizing event engagement in 2024 and beyond and before. If you're tired of the same old boring corporate gatherings, then you need Liz. She's got the antidote with her signature spontaneous think tank where attendees lead the conversation. If you want a community that lasts year round, Liz's Community as a Service offering has you covered. It's content marketing with a people first twist. Plus, she runs Club Ichi, an oasis for event professionals seeking inspiration and networking opportunities. I love how specific that is. So tune in for a fresh take on community building and event engagement with Liz from the Community Factory, the innovative hub for connecting individuals and fostering meaningful connections. And you know I love building relationships, and I love having a good time, and I love events. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Liz. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be a blast.
I love it. It is going to be a blast. I got to move my tabs around so I can see you. That's the problem with having too many things open. I am really excited.
That's how my brain is at all times. So.
Seriously. I get it. Trust me. I get it. It's a problem over here. I really am excited to have you on the show. Like, I love that you responded right away. And just like I said, looking at your content and seeing everything you're doing, it's super cool. I really appreciate it. I did events for a very long time. I've owned a multimedia company for the last 23 years. And so I have done my share of creative things, but I'm just seeing what you're doing in these like very regular spaces and doing really creative things that I think speak so much more to where we are in the business world, you know, and especially getting people to events. I can only imagine that's become different post-pandemic. And you really need to, like, you know, shake things up and get people moving, literally physically moving around and thinking differently about things. So what was the inspiration behind the Community Factory? You know, tell us a little bit about that.
My background was all corporate events in the Fortune 100 world at Dell, IBM, and doing all of the corporate things. And while we did a lot of really fun things to pull people out of just the normal sit and get, it was pretty formulaic. I mean, you know, events are events, and that is what we do. We have the purpose to bring people together so we can sell them a thing. And so then we really relied on our partners and our sponsors to do the activations and to do fun things. And we would put our moments of insight in there. But toward the end of that corporate career of mine, I started seeing that, you know, it's not so much about the box that you're building. It's more about what the people do when you get inside the box. And we're not putting enough thought behind that. It was a little bit of, push because we have to push the parade of presidents on stage and doing all the things you need to do. So I started really playing more. And before I left IBM, I would say forgiveness, not permission. I did some really fun, engaging things that worked out phenomenally well and kind of built my confidence that, you know what, we can push the boundaries here. And then in 2019, I had started a company with some friends, and we did the world's first secret business trip. And it was our intent to show people that you did not have to be confined by the walls of a ballroom in order to create an event that drives business. So we invited 80 experiential marketers to meet us at JFK, bring their passport, pack for 6 days, and we told them nothing else. When they got to the airport, we revealed that we had chartered a plane to Tuscany, and we whisked them away for a 6-day spontaneous think tank filled with truffle hunting and pasta making and conversations and all the things. And I mean, the ROI on that, like 5 years later, the WhatsApp group that was really originally created to tell people when the bus was coming to their villa is still going. People are RFPing in that WhatsApp group. Like, the business that's been done, over $25 million in business among the people on the plane together in the last 5 years. So proof that you don't have to put people in a ballroom and sell to them all day.
I mean, my head is spinning. That is absolutely insane. Okay, the first thing I got to know as a business owner is how did you come up with all the money to do that? That's a lot of money. That must have cost you. I mean, I get the ROI, but that was a huge upfront investment for you. That must have been a real leap of faith.
Well, we charged people to attend, so they paid between $2,500 and $3,500 to come on the trip, and they didn't know where they were going, so it was a leap of faith for them too.
Okay.
So it was definitely us doing this thing together.
So how did you reach those people? Like, were these people that you had engaged with a little bit before? Like, this is fascinating to me.
A little bit. There were some of the people that came on the plane knew us. Some of the people were like straight cold outreach on LinkedIn, telling them what it was, and they were like, "Well, that sounds interesting." We thought we were going to bring just kind of experiential managers and people at that level. We ended up, I think, with 28 CEOs of event agencies that were like, "Yeah, let's try this," and really think differently about it. So it was amazing.
That is the coolest thing ever. Liz, you're freaking awesome. I swear to God. That is so cool. I love that. I did a party one year for New Year's Eve. And when anybody bought a ticket, I had a bike courier show up at their house within an hour with a gold box and like a skeleton key on a velvet rope, and like so like I'm down for the like let's push the envelope. Not I mean I just told my little janky key story with your Italy story, but whatever.
I think it is completely comparable because who's doing that today? Nobody's doing that. That's unbelievable.
And
I love
you
it.
never seen the people happier to show up to a party in your life. They were like, "Here's my necklace. Here's my skeleton key." It was worth
Yes.
every bit of effort put into it. People still talk about that party. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because of that. So I know it makes a difference, right? Like because everybody's doing the same stuff. You got to stand out a little bit more. You got to make it an experience, something you're going to remember. And
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for attracting the type of people you want to work with too, and somebody who's
Yeah.
willing to just like bring their passport and show up at the airport. Like that's my kind of person too. I would, like it's a great way to suss out your people and your client base, right? Like people who
That is
cheers,
100%. Yes.
cheers to you. Okay. So let's talk about communities, right? So I know you have some communities. So let's talk about
Mhm.
your communities. What are they and why are you running communities?
Yeah, so the Community Factory is the company, and really it was created for us to help people put a sense of community at their events. So we would do these spontaneous think tanks and we would do those at events and create this whole sense of community. And then what ended up happening was the people at those events would go, "Oh my God, we just made the most amazing community. How do we keep it going year round?" Like, well, I guess we can help with that. And so the whole idea of this community as a service, just how do we keep people engaged throughout the year until they come back to the next one, was born. But from that, from my background in corporate and my business partner Nicole's background in corporate as well, we kind of had this community following from the secret trip and all those things. So we launched the community that we call Club Ichi. And ichi comes from the Japanese word one. I found this phrase, ichigo, ichi-e, which means one moment, one time, which is what we try to create with events, right? It's that moment where you're just like, whoa, that could never have happened the way it happened. It was so beautiful. So that's what the community is about. And it acts as our showpiece for what we believe year-round community should be. And it's both a showpiece for community as a service and our playground. So we can try engagement things within our community and it can fail and everybody's like, "That's cool." And then we don't sell that to clients, right? So it's just a fun place for people to be okay trying new things, especially for our corporate event professionals, because they are so like everything they do has to be pixel perfect. There's no room for mistakes when you're doing these big events. But within our community, we can try these things and test it out and allow it to fail and really learn with each other. And that's the cool part. And then we have another community called Team CMO that is for heads of marketing. And similarly, it's a much more, I would say, low engagement community compared to the event folks because they don't need as much. But when they do, they're small groups. They're great roundtable discussions. They're really great kind of learning from each other once a month online. And it's exactly what they need when they need it. And so again, it allows us to show the juxtaposition of like this really ridiculously engaged community and this community that's there for practice and for a purpose and for when they need us.
I mean, there's value in both, right? Because like not everybody needs, different strokes for different folks, right? Like, and it's nice to know that you have those resources when you need them, but sometimes it can be overwhelming, I really like, kind of thinking about. There was a question I had for you. It was like, the difference between creating a community and creating a sense of community, like, or creating a sense of community versus actually creating a community, and that really resonated with me because I think that I could be a little jaded and cynical sometimes, for sure. It's part of my charm. Both my parents, my mom's from Brooklyn, my dad's from the Bronx. I can't help myself, but I think a lot of times people are like creating community, but I'm like, no, it's a Facebook group. It's not an actual community. Like you're just teeing people up to sell to them, and like that's doing disservice to the actual word community and the meaning of community, what community actually is. And so it kind of resonates with me. Like, this real community versus just a sense of community or the sales of a community,
Yeah. Well, and because I'm just a little bit waffle brain. Have you ever heard the waffle brain and spaghetti brain people? Like waffle brain people have syrup in one square at a time. Spaghetti brain people have sauce on every noodle at every time. So I'm kind of like the spaghetti brain, but I have to like line up the noodles before I put them back in and count them, all that. So I have to create frameworks to help get the sauce on all the noodles. And so I have like my sense of community framework, which is my 5 C's. And I have my community funnel, which is like how do you engage an actual community, which I call my 5 S's. So my 5 C's, this is the sense of community. You can create it at an event, you can create it in a Facebook group, wherever you need to create a sense of community. But it is care, collaborate, co-create, converse, and connect. And when people create communities, they think, well, we're just going to create an environment for connection. If you don't just throw people in a room with cheese cubes and loud music and expect it to happen.
Right.
You have to actually do these things. So number 1 is care. You have to care about the environment you're creating, and the people have to care when they're coming to it that they want to connect. Because if they're literally just there to go learn something, then they're not there for community. It's going to fail. They have to be willing. The collaboration part, people have to start being willing to kind of share their thoughts with each other openly. And then co-creating, that collaboration leads to creating something together when you realize you have a shared connection. Can't do anything without conversation. So that's where you build in the conversation. If your entire event is sit and get and learn, then you've missed out on the whole opportunity for that connection. So that's my 5 C's of community. Now, if you've decided it is not a sense of community that we built, it is a community that we want to keep going, the framework that we came up with, we call the 5 S's. And you don't have to have all of these, but the best, most thriving communities I see have all of them. And that's the show, the site, the series of gatherings, the sounding board, and the shareable moment. So the show is what's your top of funnel. So like what you've got here with the show, what allows people outside of the community a little bit of access inside the community. So you're highlighting the people that are in your community. You're bringing new people in by asking them to be guests. This is your top of funnel. The site is now, it could be LinkedIn group, Facebook group, Slack channel, whatever. It's the place where the people can meet each other asynchronously and have conversations. The series of gatherings could be online or in person, could be once every 4 years, could be every month. Whatever your cadence is, that's how the people get together. My sounding board is my small group. My 5 to 7 people that I can use to bounce ideas off of, get their insights, tell me who should be on my show next, and really kind of be my inner circle. And then my shareable moments could be anything from swag to the content you're creating inside the community, to bits from the show, to the insights that come from the gatherings, all of those things.
Okay, yeah. So the 5 S's, and the last one is the shareable moments.
Yes, so the shareable moments, swag, the pieces from inside the community, insights, bits from your show, anything that can be shared outside the community by your folks that are inside it.
So who is best suited to create communities for their business? Who do you primarily work for with this community as a service?
It's so interesting because it could be anyone from the VP of marketing to the director of product to somebody who's basically a customer advocacy person. So it's whatever part of the business really needs the community, and the communities serve a different purpose because they could be advisory in nature if it's coming from the director of product, or it could truly be a sales community in nature if it's coming from the director of marketing. It's not wrong to sell to your community and monetize it, but the people that are coming into it have to understand what they're getting into.
Interesting. So who is like who is the favorite like avatar of a client that you've worked with? Like you don't have to say their name, but like what was the most rewarding, where you saw the most impact with your work?
My favorite is when it's a company that wants to launch an advisory council, like they haven't done it yet. And so we're able to come in and help them create their first in-person advisory council, use our spontaneous think tank format to get customer feedback and create peer-to-peer conversation. And now they want to keep that council going for 1 year or 2 years or whatever. And so that allows us to do a kickoff and then kind of keep it running. So that's kind of our favorite group. It's small enough, but large enough to have an impact, you know?
Very interesting. Very interesting. I love this. Okay. Let's see. I have another one. Oh, yeah. I want to talk about the, you just mentioned the spontaneous think tank. Let's talk a little bit about that. What is that?
Spontaneous think tanks are, they're, if you may have heard of an unconference, they were really big in the 80s. It was like a bunch of people it was really unformatted. And then came this thing called open space formats where it was super unformatted and the participants get together and figure out what they're going to talk about. And then I spent some time at IBM. So we had the idea design thinking with all the sticky notes everywhere. So basically, if you take those three things, put them together and kind of a little bit like a hackathon, that's what it ends up being. But the idea came from sitting at industry conferences that, again, were keynote, breakout, expo, and they did not give us any time to talk to each other. And when you get to a certain point in your career, you just want to talk to the other people in the room. And the events weren't letting us do that. So we took all of those other formats and said, okay, we're going to bring people together. We're going to bring the big sticky notes. We always use the big 6x8 sticky notes. And we ask people, what one challenge are you trying to solve today? And they can use one sticky note per challenge and they fill the wall. We call it the wall of woes, all the problems everybody's trying to solve. And then we ask them, step back, take a look at the wall of woes. And if you see something up there that you've solved in your business, go write your name on that. And so now you start to see, oh, this person's done this person's done that, and the conversation happens. And it all like this beautiful pro-social effervescence of like the popcorn popping, and people are like, oh yeah, I've done that. Oh yeah, oh, you get to talk to me about that. And so from there, we then create peer-to-peer sessions by asking the folks who've solved the problem to lead a conversation about how they solved it. And so the rest of the agenda is putting people in small groups to solve these problems together. Brilliant. So we call it a think tank because it's all about solving problems. We call it spontaneous because we don't know what their problems are till they get there.
That is so good. That is so good. I love that. I used to work for in the mortgage industry, and we would have different lenders come in every week, and they would tell us their products. And then so we would get education on new lenders all the time, and then they would leave, and anybody with problem files would stay at the table, and we'd say, I got a guy, bank statements only, self-employed, 20% down. And, oh, yeah, go to First Jefferson. But, after working there for a year, you knew every single lender, every single program, every single product, every single person to call. I mean, it was amazing. It was the most effective business I think I've ever worked in, honestly, from sharing that information. Who knew?
Yeah, it's so good. And it's still interesting to me that the executives are still a little nervous about allowing that true peer-to-peer at their corporate events because they're always afraid it'll devolve into like some complaint session or whatever. And it never does. I mean, anytime that it gets into that segment of like, oh, people saying bad things, they all bring it back. Or if you've got subject matter experts in there, the product guys that are sitting there at a SaaS company's customer conference and they're like taking notes, like, tell me what else to fix. Tell me what else I should do. And they love it. It's so cool.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, that's really brilliant. I love it. I love it. Okay. Let's see. And then one more question. How do you measure the success of like community building initiatives? What does that look like exactly?
It depends on why you created the community, right? So there's three kinds. There's community of practice, community of product, and community of purpose. And so if it's a practice, it's a group of people that are coming together in the same industry. And so it could be acts of advocacy. It could be things that they're learning. It could be maybe monetization of your community is the metric. You're just trying to hit a certain revenue level. If it's a community of product, it's usually people around some sort of software product or something else, or even like Liquid Death, maybe, their community that is really trying to drive people in the music industry to drink their water or whatever. But that's measured by whatever is usually either growth or feedback. And a lot of times it is feedback in the product. And so they'll create the community around that. And then of course, communities of purpose are the do-goods, and they definitely have their advocacy, their engagement, their impressions, whatever they're trying to accomplish. So that's kind of something that we work out in the strategy. And I hate the answer of it depends, but it depends.
Well, no, I mean, that's relevant. That's a proper answer. All right. So now we're going to move on to our speed round portion of the podcast. You don't have to answer them super fast, but they're just fun questions. So, all right. Are you ready? Are you ready for the speed round?
Ready. Let's do it.
All right. Number one, how do you see content marketing evolving in the next 5 years?
Okay, so the big scary part of content marketing is AI generated content. So how do you get through the noise of everything that everybody is putting out there? And I think this is where community comes in, because if the content is coming from within the community, featuring people in the community or highlighting things relevant to your community, that's going to cut through the noise. And so I think that drives me to my answer of it's about intention, not attention.
Ooh, oh, that's a good one. Intention, not attention. Oh, that is good. That's a gem right there. We're making a graphic out of that one for sure. It's so true, though. It's so true. There's so much stuff out there. You know what I mean? Like that's people get confused sometimes. I think, like even with podcasting, they're like, "Well, how many downloads?" I'm like, "Why do you? Is the phone ringing? Are you getting discovery calls? Do you want to be Joe Rogan or you want to make money? You know what I mean? What's the metric here, right? So intention, not attention. Oh my God, that's so good. I'm gonna put that on a T-shirt. Put your name under it.
Yes.
I'll quote you for it. I'll quote you for it. Okay, number two. Do you think that content plays a role in community building?
Yes, 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 yes. I think that content comes into the community because people look to that community to each other for the insights that they're sharing and the content they're bringing in. And then I think content comes out of the community because if you're doing it right, you're asking your community what challenges they're trying to solve and they're telling you what their pain points are. And you can share that outwardly and help people feel a sense of belonging. Like, oh, I'm not the only one going through that. Oh my God, that's amazing. So I think that content is a pivotal part of community.
I love it. Okay, what was the best installation you ever created at an event?
Okay, let's see. I did this ridiculous one at IBM that I went off brand, and so I couldn't use the IBM logo on it anywhere. But it was at the IBM conference, so I thought it was cool. But it was called Datatopia, and we really told the story of our customers as their heroes, as the superheroes. But we brought in this artist to make these huge panels that were all comic books. And so as you went in, you went through the story of like the data swamp and all of your data is in bad places, and then it took you into the heroes, and all of these customers were the superheroes that were kind of showing how they had saved their data wares and challenges. We had Paul Rudd there signing autographs. He's a very nice guy. We had to make him pre-sign autographs because he talked way too long for each person. He's an amazing human. And we had like sketch artists turning people into, of course, superheroes. And then we had one of those like vertical walls that's laying down. So you lay down, it looks like you're scaling the wall for the photo thing. And like, it was just so freaking fun. I loved every second of it.
That's awesome. Okay, now equal question. What was the worst installation or the biggest flop?
Let's see. I mean, I did once do an event that was one of those standard, boring, like, I guess you could call it like a steak and storage, right? It's at the Roots Chris Steakhouse, and you'll come get your pitch, and then you'll get your free steak and all that kind of stuff. And we're doing a couple of those. And, you know, after a while, doing audience acquisition to those is really, really tough. So when you're supposed to have 30 people and 5 show up, I think that, you know, that teaches you a lesson in maybe how you're engaging people and what you're doing. And that maybe it would have been way more interesting to throw pottery on a pottery wheel than to just have another steak dinner.
Amen. You know, I did events for a long time, and you know, when they're good, and when they're bad, it's the most painful thing in your whole life. It's, you know,
and then you have to carry the whole conversation as if you meant for 5 people to be there.
It's the worst. It is the worst. But you know, if you can get through that and do it again, then you've got some grit, and you're probably gonna make it.
Well, it turns out you just got to be able to turn on a dime, right? And be like, you truly do believe that those 5 people that are there are the most amazing people. You have a very small table. You have an incredible conversation. Those 5 people were actually super highly qualified leads. You're probably going to close more than you did at the dinner with 30 people. So it's a matter of really switching the mindset around it, making sure that you do it right, and then keep going. Like, okay, it was a bad city. We won't go back there, but those 5 people were awesome, right?
And
once you get over the gut-wrenching embarrassment of being
once you get through that, once you wade through that, see, you know, then but you're right, it is a more intimate, it's a perspective shift, it's a mindset shift on what are you going to do with what you got instead. So I really like that a lot, for sure. What do you think is going to be the big trend in like activations at events in 2024?
You know, when experiential came out kind of in the 2010s or whatever, everybody went to the very consumer focused activations at business events. And then we lost all of it during COVID when events went away completely. And now I think that people have really over indexed on going super duper consumer at these business events. Like Money 2020, if you see images from that, they're phenomenal, some of the activations that they've had. But I started to see that they're no longer taking the time, effort, or strategy to connect it to the content content or the business. They are doing activations for the purpose of looking cool instead of actually tying it back to the business. So I think the trend that I'm going to see, that I'm hoping to see, is that those engaging activations actually mean something and are actually tied to a relevant campaign and are truly going to be tied back to ROI instead of just tied to, vanity metrics of we had this many people come spin our wheel or whatever, which I think it had gotten away back to that for a while.
Yeah, I went to Expo West a couple years ago, like before the pandemic, and I was like super overwhelmed. And I definitely, through our conversation, I'm like remembering lots of examples of good and bad there, and just the amount of money that is spent on those. Holy moly, man.
Well, we went to South by this year and I did an experience crawl for Club Ichi. So we set up 10 experiences that we got to go to and talk to the event manager to find out why they were doing it, who their target audience was, and what the metrics of success were for them. And I was mind boggled that of the 10 we went to, I think only 2 or 3 had answers to those questions. The others were like, oh, we're just doing it because the CMO wanted to. And I'm like, but surely the CMO has a purpose, right? And they're like, well, probably.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild, the amount of money that gets spent and the time and the energy and the effort and the lodging and the flights and the shipping and the this. And then it's like, what's the metric for success? Did you get email addresses? Are they real email addresses? You know what I mean? Like what did you do? And, especially when Expo West is just like, oh God, it's like the Las Vegas. So it's like, you've got companies that have these hanging things from the sea. They spend $1 million on an installation. And so what's your little booth going to do? How are you going to keep up with them? So, it's pretty, we actually just did a thing for, Retail Voodoo, and they walked around Expo West saying, you've been judged. And they wore hot pink and they had a bag, the little bag of judgment. And they would go up to a booth and say, you've been judged, and leave a card, and they could scan it and see how they were judged. And it was all real time. So we built that activation, but like, talk about brilliant. Like, they didn't spend a dime on a booth and they engaged with everybody. And then they did like a People's Choice Award, and now they have email addresses and people in the funnel. It was like the highest return thing. So we built the back end system for them so that as they're voting, it's updating real time and adding the photo and all that. So as soon as people scanned, they could see what their score was. Immediately. And they're wearing these hot pink shirts. And so people are walking around going like, who the hell are these guys? And then they go to their website and they're like, oh, they designed Kind Bars and Essentia Water and Russell Stover. And, the list goes on and Lesser Evil Popcorn. You're like, oh, well, geez, we were fortunate to be judged by that group of people. No booth.
I love it.
Some T-shirts, bags, and a couple iPads. No booth. That's like right up your alley. I should introduce you to her, actually. I will.
I have a dream of convincing a cybersecurity company to sponsor the bathrooms at an industry event and have like one of those cardboards where it looks like there's someone looking over the stall and it says, value your privacy, visit us in booth 210 or something. Like, this is my dream. Someday I'm going to convince someone to do it.
Yes. Well, if I find a cyber company with some good sense of humor, I will send them your way, Liz, because I love stuff. Come on, what are we doing? We're all doing the same stuff, you know what I mean? So it's like you got to switch it up a little bit, and it's not always about how much money you spend or how much money you waste, right? Because you think about the amount of waste at like an Expo West. It's like, Jesus Christ, you could feed every homeless person in America with all the food they throw away at Expo West.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is. And then who are you selling to? You're selling to the people who are buying your products anyway, like Whole Foods. So I don't really know. I don't really fully understand any of it, to be honest, but, but it works, right? It all works. You got to get.
Someone's making money off of it.
The hotel, I think the convention center is the one who's really taking it all home. But yeah, standing out as a brand, doing something different, it makes a difference, because I think people are getting a little bit more particular about how they spend their money too. And so I think it really makes it.
Yeah, and the human engagement piece. The more we can bring the people back into it, have actual people at your booth, and don't have them behind a table, have them in front. Actually talk. We actually did one of our spontaneous think tanks in a client's booth, where during the opening reception in the expo hall, we were the booth engagement people going, hey, what are you here trying to solve today? Filled that whole wall of woes. And instead of doing theater sessions in the booth, they ran sessions based on what the people were saying they were trying to solve and put up an agenda. And my dream would be for them, instead of even doing those kind of sessions, to put a podcast booth in there. Because if you could get 4 people, to sit down in there and talk about one of those topics, now you got 4 really incredible prospects on your podcast with you, right?
As I was literally just thinking, Liz, when you go pitch that, you let me know. I'll be there. I'll show up with microphones and cameras. I love that stuff. I love that renegade field work. That's my I'm just a big nerd behind a microphone is really what's going on here. I love technology and audio and video, so like I'm into it. I love doing on-site stuff like that, because it's interesting, it's important, and you can have conversations and podcast recordings in a place like that, and it adds this whole like effect to it, and it's content, and it's a runway to continue those relationships. More importantly, you have a relationship now, the gift of reciprocity. You can keep it going after the convention. It's not just another business card at the bottom of the tote bag.
Yeah, well, and imagine everyone you scanned at your booth, instead of sending them to an SDR to just reach out, you're actually sending them a playlist from all the podcasts that were recorded in the booth. And now there's something valuable. You're giving them value.
Which, it exists because the Wall of Woes told you everything that they were struggling with, and you can answer those problems right there. It's brilliant. The Wall of Woes. I'm going to put one in my bedroom. Where to start? Brilliant. I didn't even know they made Post-its that big. I'm like, I live in Costa Rica. We don't even have Post-its, I don't think, honestly. But next time I come back, I'm getting the big ones. Those look awesome for sure.
They're amazing.
I love it. Like my whole house is windows, so I don't have any place to put a whiteboard. So I just write on all the windows. People come over, they think I'm crazy, but I don't care.
No, I love it. Windows are the best for the Post-it notes too, because you put them up there and they just give you that beautiful color pop. They're great.
Yes. Oh, I'm into it. I'm a sucker for organization. I really am. So I'm into it. Okay. All right. We're getting off track here. All right. I have a wild card question for you. If content marketing had a theme song for community building, what would it be and why?
It would be Purple Hat. Have you heard this song?
No.
Okay. Let's see. It's Purple Hat by Sophie Tucker. That's the song you want.
Okay. I love it. We'll see if we can play a few seconds of it without getting sued. We'll try to make that happen. Okay. And why? Why would that be your song?
Because it talks about the people. It's the people and the people and the people and the people. It's like the best song, and it's all about the people, and it's just being with the people and partying with the people and hanging with the people. It's just perfect.
I love it. I mean, at the end of the day, relationships close deals, right? Like not downloads, not any of this other stuff. And so you want to work with the people that you like and you resonate with. So I'm here for it. 100%. Okay. All right. And the last segment of the show, this one is called Real or Fake. And I'm going to read out podcast names. And you're gonna tell me if you think they're real or fake. I tried to like create them around your industry, so we'll see. Okay, number 1, hotel moment.
Fake.
It's real. I can believe that. I'm like, what kind of podcast is this? It was about doing events in hospitality at hotels. Very poorly named. Okay, all right. Next one, Engage-O-Rama.
Oh God, that's probably real.
It's fake. All right. Okay. Next one. Top floor.
Ooh. Well, I'm gonna say fake.
It's real.
Of course it is. Because I keep thinking if it means nothing, it would have been made up. But no, if it means nothing, apparently it's what you name your podcast.
I mean, anybody can name a podcast. That's the lesson we're getting here. Okay. Number 4, hospitality from within.
Oh.
I know. I was like, what have I stumbled on? It's real. It's actually real. I'm like, I'll have to look at the category.
Well, I would say for that one, if you have not read the book Unreasonable Hospitality, I highly recommend that book. It's phenomenal. By the guy that did 11 Madison Park, like the best book ever. Okay, good. I love a good book recommendation. I need to add that to the segments because I love a good book. Okay, and the last one is unboring corporate events. Well, that should be a podcast, but I'm going to say it's fake.
It is fake, and I think you should start that podcast, actually. That sounds fantastic.
Sounds
Boom. All right. Well, you were 1 for 4, but there's always room for improvement.
Benchmarking. I'm just benchmarking here.
Hey, luckily it's not what you do for a living, so no love lost. We're good. But yeah, there's so many ridiculous podcasts. I was like, this is a great segment because there's so many. Like everybody gets them wrong because they're so ridiculously named. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's what are you gonna do? Well, Listen, I have had so much fun hanging out with you, Liz. You're great. I love all the stuff that you're doing and all the content on LinkedIn. So I would say, for anybody listening to this, follow Liz on LinkedIn. All her links are going to be in the show notes and stuff because her content is great and it'll inspire you. And these communities sound really great. So I would say event professionals, right? What would you like to say to people before we go? What are your final words of wisdom and where can people find you and all the good stuff?
Oh, I love it. So I just think that we go back to the intention over attention. And if you just put that really at the forefront of your content creation and your people curation as you bring people into your life, it's not about having the biggest following. It's about having the right following. And I think that's important. So find me on LinkedIn, Liz Lathan, and thecommunityfactory.com. We have a newsletter called The Engaged Attendee that goes out every Monday that's just got fun ideas and thoughts on how to engage your audience. And then, of course, if you are a B2B event professional, clubichi.com.
Yeah, that sounds cool. That can be a lonely world. So I bet that's a great option for people in that space. You're always trying to be innovative and creative, and you need a lot of people. When you're an event coordinator, you're relying on a lot of moving parts to get.
You are. You're basically the CMO of your little world, right? And
for sure.
The world is not so little anymore. There's a lot to it.
For sure. So especially when you're doing stuff as cool as you are, like the secret business trip and all these other events. So Liz, absolutely pleasure hanging out with you. Thanks for coming on the show. I think this was interesting and valuable. I'm sure our listeners will too. So thank you for taking time to hang out with me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So fun.
Yeah. So thank you for tuning into Camp Content. I hope you guys found this valuable. Liz is a lot of fun. Follow her on LinkedIn. Check out all the links. And if you're planning an event, hit her up. I think you're going to be sold when you see her LinkedIn content, all the stuff she's doing. It's really innovative, really fun. And there's a little something for everybody. That's one thing I noticed about her content. There's all kinds of events that she's showing up at and doing things at. So no matter what your industry is, you might want to consider hitting her up, especially if you're in the podcast industry and you got a convention coming up. Let's bring Liz in and spice some things up a little bit. I think she's got some great ideas. So on that note, if you found the content valuable, please consider just commenting on LinkedIn or sharing the content and hitting us up. And until then, please be excellent to each other, and we'll see you in a couple of days. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Camp Content. This is Molly.
And this is Matt.
And we are Heartcast Media, a.k.a. Camp Content, and we appreciate all of your support. If you found this content valuable, please comment on social media, LinkedIn, wherever you find us, and we will make sure to comment back.
And be sure to go on and subscribe and like on your favorite platforms, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, you name it. Leave us that subscription. Leave us that good review.
We'll love you forever. So until next time, be excellent to each other, and we'll see you next week.
Produced by Heartcast Media.